Hello and welcome to East Castle Place's weekly Bible study. I am Chaplain Harold Epley and I'm glad you're joining me again this week. We are continuing our Bible study using devotions from the book Dancing in the Aisle, Spiritual Lessons We Have Learned from Children, a book written by my wife Rochelle Melander and myself a number of years ago. The devotions in this book tell stories about children that we have encountered in our years of being pastors and talk about some of the challenges that children face, and then we relate those stories to us as adults. And we always have a scripture passage that we look at as well and a theme for the day, and then at the end some questions for you to reflect on and maybe discuss with a friend or just reflect on by yourself. And today's theme is entitled Cardboard Castles. Cardboard Castles. You might wonder what that's referring to. Well, the theme is about those things in our lives that are temporary, which is just about everything if you think about it. We are mortal and we know we're going to die one day, and we know that if there's one thing that's consistent about our lives, it's that things are always changing. So that's the theme that we're going to reflect on, how we as humans deal with the changes in our lives and how in the midst of that we cling to the one thing that is eternal. That is, of course, our Savior Jesus, the power of God that keeps us going even when life is full of challenges. So let's start with the Bible passage, and this is one that might be familiar to you. It's from the Old Testament, the book of Isaiah, the prophet. It's the 40th chapter. I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 8. And you might recognize some of these words because they're actually part of Handel's Messiah. Every valley, that part there, every valley will be lifted up and every mountain will be made low. That's part of this passage, but the passage overall really has this theme of how the things of this world are always passing away, always changing, and in the midst of that, God is everlasting. So let's look at this passage, Isaiah 40, verses 1 through 8. Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem, and cry to her that she has served her term, that her penalty is paid, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. A voice cries out, in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all people shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. A voice says, cry out. And I said, what shall I cry? All people are grass. Their constancy is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, when the breath of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. Some very beautiful poetic words there from Isaiah. And again, that reminder, everything, the flower fades, the beautiful flowers that are all around us now, beautiful green grass, we know, we enjoy it in the summertime, but we know as the summer progresses, those flowers do indeed fade. Fall comes, winter comes, it's the cycle of life. And in the midst of that, though, one thing never changes, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the devotion is entitled Cardboard Castles. A path of brightly colored cardboard bricks stretched from the front door to the fireplace. Lying end to end, they made a long oval shape. Here and there, the builder had added height by piling bricks on top of one another. The oval castle, as the 5-year-old builder Alice had instructed us to call it, was inhabited by a sundry collection of stuffed animals and dolls. At one end of the castle, blonde-haired dolls enjoyed afternoon tea in the garden. In the center, a zebra and a hippo rested on an upturned green shoebox, sunning themselves. At the far end of the oval, stuffed rabbits, kittens, and turtles slept silently under washcloth blankets. This castle community existed peacefully within the house of the human family for many hours, until Alice's mother said, "Time to put away your toys." Immediately, Alice pounded her tightly balled fist on the floor and wailed. "Please don't make me take my castle down," she pleaded. "I'll do anything. I'll even set the table. Just don't make me put it away." Alice wanted her creation to be permanent. She couldn't comprehend a world that insisted her beautiful castle could not stand forever. Most of us have a little of Alice in us, maybe more than we want to realize. We want our work to be noticed and remembered. We want the rituals and the relationships in which we participate to last forever. Even as we are wishing and praying for permanence, we know that much of life is like building cardboard castles in the living room. Nothing on this earth can or should last forever. Life changes with every breath we take. Every day we age, and the bodies we have come to know, even if never to love, seem to deceive us. Illness, death, and natural disasters tear people's worlds apart. Everyone and everything we meet and grow to love on this earth changes and eventually dies. Still, we keep at it. We keep building castles and villages, making love and giving birth, digging in the dirt and reaching for the sky, hoping to create something of substance, if not permanence. Alice put her toys away that day, and the next day she built a village under the dining room table. That too had to be taken down. Her apartment building perched on the plant stand, her office beneath the coffee table, and her campsite in front of the fireplace all met the same fate. But Alice kept trying. And her persistence is encouraging. For in the midst of an unstable and difficult world, our small actions of envisioning, loving, and creating are signs of hope. We hope that what we do will make a difference, and that no matter what happens, God's love and presence will have permanent places in our lives. When the people of Israel were exiled to Babylon, they thought it would be temporary. So they didn't want to settle and build their lives there. They hoped to live out of their traveling bags until the time came to move home again. But the prophet Jeremiah instructed them to build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat what they produce, take wives and have sons and daughters, take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease. But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to God on its behalf. For in its welfare you will find your welfare. And that's from Jeremiah chapter 29, verses 5 through 7. Jeremiah's advice is good for all of us. Life on this earth may be temporary, but in living and loving, we will find our welfare. This lesson hit home during a particularly stressful time in our lives. As we complained to a friend, he scribbled a note on a paper and handed it to us. It read, "Cultivate your own garden." In other words, despite life's impermanence, despite feeling alienated, plant what you can. Do not fret over poor soil or insufficient sunlight. Do your best with what God has given to you. Don't worry about the inevitable frost to come. Marvel at the beauty of your flowers while they bloom. The prophet Isaiah wrote, the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. All of us are living a temporary existence. Only God remains a constant. Still, like Alice, we need to keep building castles. Like the exiles, we need to seek the welfare of the place where we are. We need to cultivate our gardens. I've heard that said another way, cultivate your gardens. Another way of putting that is bloom where you are planted. And I know a number of you are gardeners and love the beauty of plants and the whole process of planting the seeds and watering them and letting the sun shine on them and watching them grow and the beautiful flowers that result from that. Those are really, that whole process is a lesson for us. Through it all, we know it's temporary. We know the flower will fade eventually. But in the moment when that flower is blooming, we can enjoy being present, enjoy God's blessings in that moment, enjoy being part of the creative process. And of course, summer, this time of year, allows us to do a lot of that. So that's our theme, our reflection on the fact that things are temporary, and yet, even despite that, we can enjoy being in the moment, enjoy the things that we experience as they happen to us, knowing that God is eternal, and knowing that even though the flower will fade, knowing that we will pass from this earth one day, God continues to guide us and lead us through that to something even better and greater. So, questions for you to think about. First one is, what are some other examples of cardboard castles? We really use that as a metaphor. The little girl with her cardboard blocks building her castles. But in a way, we're all doing that, right? The things that we create, the things we accomplish in life, we know they're temporary. And yet, there is value in doing them, obviously. So maybe you can think of some other cardboard castles, using that metaphor, in your life. Things that you've done that aren't going to last, and yet still have value. And certainly, we've already mentioned planting a garden is one of those. Second question, think about a cardboard castle from your past. Something you spent a lot of time creating that did not last. Which was most meaningful to you? The process of creating it or the finished product? Think about that. Sometimes the process is as exciting, or if not more exciting, than the final product. Why did you take it down? And what was the experience of taking it down like for you? And again, taking it down, we're using as a metaphor. Little Alice had to take down her creations in the living room when her mom said it was time for supper. But the things we create eventually need to be taken down. Have a career, we retire from that career. We raise a family, we see the family go off to start their own lives. Those are examples of taking it down, something coming to an end. And that ending can be, of course, a process for a new beginning of something else. Third question, how does building castles affect our relationship with God? As I said, God is eternal. So how does knowing that, how does knowing that God is the constant in our lives affect the things we create and do in the moment? So a lot of things to think about there, but the reminder, and of course in this time of this pandemic we are reminded more than ever that things are constantly changing, and we are in God's hands. So as you spend time, perhaps more time than you'd like by yourself, you can reflect on those questions. Hopefully you're getting to see other people a little more, at least making contact, phone calls. I miss seeing you. I run into some of you occasionally in the hallways. It's great always to see you, to hear your voice, even if I can't see your whole face because of the mask. And no, we're looking forward to the day when we can get back to our face-to-face Bible studies and have that give and take, that conversation where we're sharing God's Word. Meanwhile, keep at it, keep trusting in God's power, and have a great week. I'll be back again with another Bible study next week. God bless.